Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsworthy. My name is Anubha Bhonsle, and here on Newsworthy, our aim today, our aim for the last few weeks, and in fact for the last few months really, has been to get you news without noise, news that has empathy, news that's devoid of conflict, news that has context, and news that truly helps you understand the news and realize its importance in your life. I'll just wait for a few more people to join in. We don't do this very often, but I'm hoping here on Newsworthy we can do this about 3 to 4 times a week. And our hope and our focus really would be to try and bring you 5 to 6 stories that we believe are of importance. As we do this more often, perhaps we'll get better. We look very closely at your feedback, what's attracting you, what's feeling too complicated. We'll try and keep this short. I know in the time of this pandemic, there is an information glut, there is an information overload, so to speak. We're all feeling numb with all the facts and figures. So I'll try and keep it jargon free. I truly believe this would be news that's worthy of your time, it's worthy of your attention, and it's worthy of your mental health. It's news you essentially need at this point in time. So let's get started. This is sort of the first edition of Newsworthy Live, and I believe here's what's newsworthy tonight. I'll start with the first story, and it is of emphasis for you if you live in the national capital. The first story we are focusing on is Delhi's vaccination roadblock. Now, Delhi's order for about 67 lakh doses of Covaxin for vaccinating people above the age group of 18 plus. So that category of 18 to 45, well, that order has been denied by BHARAT Biotech. Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia has shared a letter that they have received from the vaccine manufacturer, and the letter goes on to articulate some of the reasons why BHARAT Biotech cannot fulfill its order for Delhi. BHARAT Biotech says that there has been a sharp spike in demand for Covaxin, and despite all their efforts of ramping up production, they simply have been unable to keep up. The second reason that they have given in their letter to the Delhi government is that we're making dispatches as per the directives of concerned government officials. We therefore sincerely regret we cannot make any additional supplies as required by you. I'm quoting directly from the letter by BHARAT Biotech that has been shared by the Delhi government. Obviously, the phrase of import, the phrase of importance here is as per the directives of concerned government officials. Now, Manish Sisodia, the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, and among many others, is actually reading this particular phrase or reading this particular letter as that the central government is trying to control the supply of vaccine, presumably even for the 18 to 45 group. Remember, this is the group for which states and private hospitals have to go directly to the 2 private manufacturers in India who have the 2 vaccines. I want to add in just a quick layer of context for you to understand the story better. 2 days ago, the Delhi government had sort of put the warning signs out saying that it was running out of vaccines for this particular group of 18 to 45. The Delhi government had come forward and said that its Covaxin stock would last only a day, and as far as Covishield was concerned, it had stocks for about 4 days. In fact, today there are reports in multiple media outfits that Delhi had to shut out about 100 vaccination sites. These were operating in about 17 schools or so, and obviously these have been shut down only temporarily. BHARAT Biotech's letter is also coming at a time when it had released a statement saying that it had shipped Covaxin to about 18 states. And yes, it had agreed that they were in much lesser numbers compared to what the states may have asked. BHARAT Biotech, in a statement to a media organization, has also said that it's quite disheartening to the teams, and by that they mean the teams of BHARAT Biotech, to hear that some of the states are complaining about our intentions. And that's all coming from the BHARAT Biotech statement. Net, what's the crux of the story? At least 7 states, and that includes Delhi, they are now looking to float global tenders with international COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers. This is obviously because India's vaccine policy is coming under a whole host of scrutiny. States and hospitals are now compelled to compete against the center for what is really a limited stock of vaccines. As I said, that's coming in only from 2 vaccine manufacturers, and it is leading to a slow rollout, not just for the 18 to 45 category for which states and private hospitals are procuring themselves, but even in some quarters for the 45 plus category for which the center is providing. So that's the top story tonight, and obviously of a lot of importance if you stay in the national capital, but it also gives you a lens of how the vaccine policy is panning out. The second story, well, it's a disturbing one, and we're not going to use any disturbing visuals per se, but the details by themselves may be disturbing. So I'll give you a minute or two. You can either switch out of this live or pause me for just a second. This is a story that's extremely important, but it could be disturbing for anyone who's going through a tough time. I'll take a moment and I'll start. Well, the story that we're talking about is bodies of COVID-19 victims continuing to be disposed of in rivers. Now, this is indicative of many things, but first and foremost, it is indicative that the COVID-19 virus is now spreading rapidly through large parts of rural India. The details that we've received so far are one coming in from Uttar Pradesh, where in Balia there have been reports of 52 bodies found in the Ganga. Till now, there is a possibility that they may have contracted COVID-19. According to the residents of Balia, these bodies were seen floating near the ghats of Baroli, Kulharia, and Ujjain. Similar grim news is coming in from Bihar, where 71 bodies have been found in Buxar in Bihar. This is the same area where bodies were again found floating in the river. It is a worrying sign also because the ghats and the rivers are a source of drinking water. They are a source of livelihood, and all of this could lead contamination and epidemics of a different kind. Again, it is not clear whether these bodies were those of COVID-19 victims. The 71 bodies have been found in highly decomposed states, and the state administration had asked the doctors for an autopsy, and they had refused. Now, the matter has obviously raised concerns in Bihar because of the number of bodies that have been found, and also raised concerns in Uttar Pradesh. But it has also led to a strange blame game of sorts, with both of the states saying that these bodies are not coming in from their state but actually belongs to the other state. That's also because about 40 kilometers upstream from Chausa in Bihar, one of the ghats, at least 25 bodies have been found in Ghazipur district of Uttar Pradesh. So a blame game is going on, but what's needless to say is it's fairly indicative now that the COVID-19 virus is spreading through rural India. Now, one of the reasons why this news is grim and disturbing, but important really for several reasons. The first point being spreading through rural India. The second point being that the media has often used funerals and crematoriums so far to actually cross-check, fact-check, and in a sense challenge official data. But what really happens when bodies are found in this way? They are without a proper funeral. Now, remember, the reasons for this disposing of bodies in rivers could be multiple. Number one, possibly the high cost of funerals. Number two could be shortage of space in either ghats or shortage of firewood. The third could simply be the fear of infection and really the fear psychosis that's spreading because of the COVID-19 virus. And as is also being reported, there are some parts which do practice cremation, but which do also practice disposing of the bodies. A grim bit of news, but we move from there to another piece of news that I'm sure many of you who did suffer from COVID-19 and did have access to a doctor or possibly lived in urban India will find useful. Well, many of you may have been prescribed the medicine ivermectin, and chances are you took a dose of about 3 days or so and did recover from COVID-19. But here's sort of the headline story. The World Health Organization, as well as several top medical bodies, are actually saying that there is no evidence to show ivermectin's use in treating COVID-19. For those of you who know nothing about this drug that's really being found on every doctor's prescription these days, well, ivermectin is commonly used as a prescription medicine against roundworm infections, and it is taken at very specific doses. As of now, at this particular time, we have at least 3 states who are prescribing it almost officially. Goa and Uttarakhand have prescribed it for all over 18 as a preventative measure. Tamil Nadu is also prescribing 12 milligrams of ivermectin for 3 days for people who are COVID positive. But here's sort of the facts of the story, and here's what top medical bodies and top medical experts are saying. Fact number 1 is, yes, some clinical trials were conducted last year in the United Kingdom, in Italy, in Spain, also in Japan, and they did claim a significant reduction in mortality and recovery time in COVID-19 patients when treated with ivermectin. But, and it's a big but, approval for the drug as a possible cure and a preventative measure for COVID-19 is still really at a very early research level. Now, here's what a whole host of experts have said on ivermectin. The US Food and Drug Administration has recommended against using ivermectin in COVID-19 treatment. They made the statement last year. It had also said that consumption of large quantities of this drug could lead to nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, even dizziness. India has also actually opted out of including ivermectin in its official clinical management protocol for COVID-19 because of what they call lack of sufficient data on its efficacy. Third is the World Health Organization that has officially recommended that until more data is available, the drug of ivermectin only be used within clinical trials because the data is inconclusive. And a final word from Merck, that actually manufactures the drug ivermectin, they have said that it does not find any evidence to support ivermectin's use in treating COVID-19. Yet, as I said, many of you have perhaps used it. You've used it in specific doses. Your doctors have recommended it, and you have possibly got better. So this is sort of a big lacuna in public health communication in this country, that in spite of top bodies saying it, in spite of India actually opting out of ivermectin for its clinical from the COVID-19 protocol of clinical management, this particular drug continues to be used. It's something we're trying to focus on a little more here on Newsworthy, and we'll try and get a doctor, a clinician, a specialist to actually answer what happens when doctors prescribe ivermectin to you. How can patients actually come forward and say no? The third story we're tracking here on Newsworthy is the issue of deaths of polling officers on election duty during Uttar Pradesh's Panchayat elections in the month of April. Now, the Allahabad High Court has actually deemed the state government's compensation for the next of kin, which was rupees 30 lakh for per deceased. The Allahabad High Court has said that this figure is inadequate, and it has ordered the state government to reconsider. A figure of 1 crore has been suggested. The court has also made some stark observations, and I want to read them out for you. The court has said that the state government, as well as the State Election Commission, were very well aware of the threat of the pandemic, and yet teachers, investigators, and what are called Shiksha Mitras were forced to take this risk. The Uttar Pradesh's Teachers Union has actually claimed that anywhere from 700 to 1,000 teachers or staff members in the education department from government schools have died of COVID-19 till now after they were forcibly deployed on election duty. The teachers union has spoken of threats of FIRs, they've spoken of threats of salary cuts, and even of termination if these people said no. So basically illustrating that they just simply had no choice but to actually go for election duty, irrespective that India was already in the midst of the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I have to add here that it obviously hasn't been proved that all of them died because of COVID-19, but there have been ground reports in various media organizations as well as accounts from the teachers union that is pointing towards this overwhelmingly. A quick word as to how the state government and the official state health minister has reacted. In fact, last week, the state government actually denied allegations, saying that there was no proof that teachers died during poll duty. And there is a quote from the Minister of State for Basic Education, Satish Chandra Dwivedi, who spoke to Hindustan Times, and the comment is rather unbecoming and unempathetic. He said, "How do we know that teachers were not infected when they came in for poll duty?" And I beg your pardon, how do we know that teachers did not get infected after they returned from poll duty? So net, as has been proven and said by various high courts in a separate hearing, the Allahabad High Court today also said that the Election Commission, the higher courts, and the government have failed to fathom the disastrous consequences of permitting the elections in few states and the panchayat elections in Uttar Pradesh. That was the fourth story that I thought was of importance for you here on Newsworthy. And I'll take up a last and final one. And we are focusing tonight on Delhi University professor Hani Babu. He has been kept in the Taloja jail in Mumbai, it's in Navi Mumbai, since 2020 in connection with the Bhima Koregaon case. His family has been alleging that he has developed an acute eye infection and has been denied access to timely health care and adequate sanitation facilities. The family, in fact, has been requesting for a hospital consultation for Hani Babu, and they did get it at a government hospital on the 7th of May, but then a follow-up was not allowed. Jail authorities said that they simply didn't have adequate resources available. They did not have escorts available, as could be the case. But today, on May 12th, jail authorities did take him to the JJ hospital in Mumbai, and his family claims that his vision continues to be severely impacted. Why is this important, you may ask, and why is this newsworthy? Well, this is newsworthy because not just Hani Babu, not just many academics, not just many activists, there are a whole host of people under trials who are currently in jail. Many of them are in vulnerable age group categories. Many of them have comorbidities. And there have been many reports of jails actually also becoming the center of a COVID-19 outbreak. There has been either no treatment for them, there has been either delayed treatment for them, there has been either insensitivity, like we saw in the case of Natasha Narwal, who was granted an interim bail finally on the 9th of May to perform the last rites of her father, Mahavir Narwal, who had contracted COVID-19 and in fact was in the ICU for about 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. So this is just to put it in context why this is possibly an area that we don't want to focus on. It's away from our vision, but it does deal with rights of people who are in a very vulnerable situation, the pandemic, but also conditions in jails, bails, interim bail not available, or them being denied treatment, and obviously the courts also working under capacity. If you do get a chance, there is a very poignant, gritty interview that we did with Mahavir Narwal sometime in March of this year. He's spoken about Natasha Narwal, he's spoken about the UAPA as a law and its impact really on citizenry. we're fairly sorry for not being able to put that interview really well in time. We could put it really posthumously after he passed away. Do watch it and tell us what you feel about it. As I also said, this is the first edition that we have done of this live telecast, and I'd really like to know more about how you'd like us to look at this format, what all we could include in. I'm really focused on making this obviously not a Delhi, Bombay, or a sort of metro-centric telecast, but essentially giving you news that is worthy, as I said, of your time, mental health, and attention, and looking at it from various of those lenses. Before I go, I think possibly we could patch in some of the chats that have come in. Now, I'm sorry for that phone actually ringing in. This is the problem of live telecasts from home. I think we'll just patch in some of the chats that have come in for us and perhaps see if there are any questions that have come in, and we could take them in, or I could bring them. I could just run through some of them. I'm not quite sure. Yes. Okay. I could try and do this. I'm sorry, I don't seem to be able to put some of your comments here. Well, I can. I can. Aru, I know you're a constant here on this channel. Thank you very much for logging in and for all your support. There is another comment from Mr. Paul. You're dumbstruck on the news of dead bodies. Yes, it's grim, it's disturbing, it has to be stopped, it is frustrating. It is also worrisome because these are very much parts of this country without adequate healthcare infrastructure that are having to deal with this pandemic in this matter. A whole lot of comments from some of our regulars here on this channel. Thank you for the interview of Mr. Narwal. It was a really good one. As I said, we apologize for putting it out rather belatedly, but that's about it. Okay, so those are the comments that have come in. Remember, you can find us here, of course, on YouTube. Do subscribe to the channel, but we're also on several other social media platforms. On Instagram, we run a really fantastic feed that has newsworthy, but also a little bit of life worthy. If you've been watching, thank you for your time. I'll try and see you again very, very soon.